monopolizing dungeons, restricting hunting grounds and payment ratio, making him infuriated. Surprised by Sang-woo's audacity, Shin challenges him to demonstrate his skill in order to determine if it is as strong as his guts. This makes Sang-woo feel extremely nervous and he contemplates what to do. Just then Shin's assistant arrives. Summoning him for an important business matter, he departs hoping to encounter them again, while Sang-woo and Jungle also take their leave as they make their way towards the designated hunting ground. Jomo thanks Sang-woo for what he did. Sang-woo says that he could not just stand by and watch. Upon asking Sang-woo shares with Jumbo the information he has come across about him on the web, Jumbo confirms the details, revealing that he was previously a member of the High Sung Guild but was ultimately expelled. Following his departure, he joined the German agency. Yet the members of his former guild continue to threaten those considering joining his agency. This resulted in a discouragingly low number of hunters opting to affiliate with them, curiosity getting the better of him. Jumbo asks Sang-woo why he has chosen to join their agency. In response, Sang-woo explains that the financial benefits offered by his agency are exceptionally impressive, ultimately swaying his decision. Sang-woo then sends a text message to his clone, who happens to be engrossed in an arduous workout at the gym, instructing him to depart at 4 o'clock. The people observing him do such a painful exercise feel relieved when he finally stops his workout session and leaves with their plan set. They finally reach the slime hunting ground, which Sang-woo finds particularly challenging for his training purposes. He finds it very difficult to breathe while wearing the gas mask, rendering him unable to fill the container. Jumbo tells him that no matter how patient a person is, it is not possible to hunt for more than 6 hours here. However, if one has high quality equipment, it is possible for one to endure much longer than that. Thinking that he cannot even bear it for 2 hours, let alone 6 hours, he decides to send number 2 to hunt, so he gives all his equipment to number 2 and he leaves to enter the hunting ground. After he has gone, Sang-woo asks Jumbo to take him and number 1 to the horned rabbit hunting ground. However, just then he realizes that he forgot to pick up number 1 from the gym. Meanwhile, number 1 stands in front of the gym waiting for Sang-woo to come. Soon after, Sang-woo arrives accompanied by Jumbo and picks up number 1 from the gym, making their way towards the EU Jackson field. On their way, Jumbo asks about Sang-woo's logic behind naming his clones. Sang-woo explains that since they all look the same, he has given them names to distinguish between them. Sang-woo asks Jumbo about the equipment he will need for hunting, and Jumbo tells that he will rent it from the hunting ground. However, he asserts the necessity to have one's own equipment because the weapons rented can only be used on one specific hunting ground. Meanwhile, they reach the EU Jackson field, an enormous and heavily guarded place. Seeing this place, Sang-woo thinks it is much different from the slime hunting ground. Jumbo informs him that this is the location of the monster break. Sang-woo knows that a monster break occurs when a monster leaves the portal and enters the human world, destroying everything in its way. This leads to the place being converted into a field similar to the EU Jackson field. Jomo tells him about a similar incident that occurred here 5 years ago, leading high-class monsters to invade the place. However, all of the high-class monsters were killed by hunters, leaving only E and F-class monsters behind. This has since made the EU Jackson field a popular training ground for new hunters. As they go inside, Jomo guides him towards the place where he can rent equipment. After obtaining all the necessary ammunition for hunting at a huge price, they venture towards the designated hunting spot. Jumbo assures Sang-woo that he can get his money back after hunting rabbits, since one horned rabbit amounts to more than a bucket of slime. After reaching the designated spot, Sang-woo sees many hunters seated there, engrossed in their hunting. Jumbo points towards Sang-woo's designated seat and tells him to sit there and begin hunting. Sang-woo, confident in his shooting abilities, takes his seat and starts hunting, believing it to be a simple task. However, to his disappointment, even after 3 hours of continuous tries, he fails to catch a single rabbit. As night falls, Jumbo departs, leaving Sang-woo alone to contemplate whether to stay or leave. Ultimately, Sang-woo delegates the hunting task of his clone number 1, instructing him to send a text message with the number 1 after each successful kill. He then heads back home, hoping that number 1 will be able to catch at least one rabbit and allow him to earn some money at home. He goes through his stats and rapidly increasing mana points, feeling satisfied that at least number 2 is slaying the slime successfully. However, thinking about Shin's challenge, he realizes that he still has a long way to go. Engrossed in these thoughts, he goes to sleep, wishing number 1 to catch at least a single rabbit. Throughout the night, messages keep arriving from number 1 updating him on his successful hunting. The next morning, Jungle receives a call from the manager of the slime hunting ground. The manager informs him that Sang-woo's clone number 2 has been hunting non-stop for a continuous 24-hour period and is not in his right mind. The manager implores Jumbo to come to the hunting ground immediately and put his stop to his further hunting activities. Hearing this, Jumbo assures them that he will be there as soon as possible. Meanwhile, Sang-woo wakes up to find his phone flooded with messages from number 1. He is astounded to discover that his clone has managed to hunt an astonishing number of rabbits. Simultaneously, Jumbo reaches the slime hunting ground and is astounded to see all their available containers filled with slime by number 2. He cannot believe that the clone has filled all of those within a single day. Jumbo calls Sang-woo and excitedly relays the news of number 2's exceptional slime hunting prowess to him. He asks him to stop clone from further hunting while he calls the corpse cleaners in response. Sangwoo, who has reached the horned rabbit hunting ground, shares the unexpected revelation of number one's remarkable rabbit hunting abilities, leaving Jumbo equally astonished. He tells Yumo to send a team of corpse collectors there as well, stating that the corpses of horned rabbits hunted by number one have blocked the way. Meanwhile, a crowd gathers at Jackson Field around number one and the pile of rabbit corpses he has accumulated. The observers are in awe of his extraordinary hunting skills. Guild masters and recruiters swarm around him, offering him invitations to join their respective guilds. However, being a mere clone, number one remains silent and does not respond to their propositions. At that moment, Sangwoo approaches number one, concealing his identity under a hood. He hands his clone an additional box of bullets, telling him to continue hunting until Jumbo comes with the corpse collectors team. Submitting to the order, number one arms himself and commences his hunt, captivating the onlookers who have gathered to witness his extraordinary abilities in action. After leaving the Jackson Field, Sangwoo makes his way to Hyen's house for their tutoring session. While checking her test, his thoughts drift towards the underestimated capabilities of his clones. He thinks that if his clones can give such an excellent output with just 50% of the stats he has, what could be their actual potential? While he is engrossed in these thoughts, he is interrupted by Hyen, who seems to be observing him out of curiosity. She asks what he was thinking about so deeply. He hands the check test to her, appreciating her for the improvement she has shown this time. She asks him once again about his thoughts, and he reveals that he was contemplating his hunting experience. Surprised by the revelation that Sangwoo is a hunter, she proceeds to share recent news regarding a hunter with him. She tells him about an individual who has astonished everyone by setting new hunting records through the successful elimination of hundreds of horned rabbits. Curiously, this person remains unidentified but goes by the name Johnson Eagle Eye. Sangwoo is astonished to see number one prominently featured on the top news section of Hunter Wiki. However, he feigns ignorance about this news when in front of Hyen expresses her long-standing desire to become a hunter with Sangwoo. She tells Sangwoo that she is awakened and has even gotten a license, but she feels nervous to enter the hunting grounds. After thinking about something, she requests Sangwoo take her to the hunting grounds just once as she scores good marks on her test. In response, Sangwoo proposes a deal, promising to fulfill her wish if she achieves good marks and secures admission to Deongguk University. Sangwoo then leaves the room and discusses Hyen's progress with her mother, assuring her that she is very talented and will surely achieve good marks. Hyen, who stands behind the door listening to their conversation, feels encouraged by Sangwoo's words. Sangwoo takes his leave, declining her offer for dinner, saying that he has to go somewhere urgently. After he leaves, Hyen feels overjoyed at getting the opportunity to talk to a hunter. She remembers disliking Sangwoo initially just because his father knew him, but after interacting with him, she began to realize that he is not a bad person. Encouraged by Sangwoo's words, she wholeheartedly commits herself to studying harder. Upon leaving Hyen's house, Sangwoo returns to the Jackson Field, where a large team of corpse collectors is busy gathering the bodies of horned rabbits. He meets Jumbo, who stands there monitoring the corpse collection process. Upon inquiring, Sangwoo tells him that he went to his tutoring job. Jumbo tells him that this is the first time in his career that he is called for such a large team of corpse collectors comprising 352 members. He asks Sangwoo to check the reward money sent by him into his account. The sum far exceeds Sangwoo's expectations, leaving him in a state of exhilaration and joy. Jomo tells him that due to the exceptional hunting skills of the clone, he has adjusted the settlement to 83%, which is used for E-class hunters. Just then they are interrupted by an individual who claims that number one has snatched away all his prey, resulting in a complete failure of his hunting experience. He demands to be paid for it, which makes Jumbo feel that they chose the wrong spot for hunting. Just then an idea sparks in Sangwoo's mind and he murmurs something to Jungle, seeing them whispering to each other. Person repeats his demand, asking for 10% of the group's earnings. Sangwoo starts to laugh upon hearing this, which infuriates him, assuring him that number one will not be coming to this place for some time now. Sangwoo and Jumbo start to leave. The person becomes enraged upon seeing them leave while he is not done talking and rushes to attack. At that moment, Sangwoo instructs number one to take the attack on himself, and he does so. Consequently, number one is badly hit in the face, leaving him bleeding. Sangwoo, who is standing nearby, records the encounter and describes it as an act of violence in such a place. This draws the attention of the corpse collectors team to the individual, causing him to feel tense, utilizing the footage as leverage, saying who threatens to expose the person's actions on Hunter Wiki, an act that would irreversibly damage his reputation. Overwhelmed by this revelation, the individual begrudgingly retreats, accepting defeat. After the encounter, Sangwoo, Jumbo, and number one head to a coffee shop. There, Jumbo reveals that the person they encountered at Jackson Field was a member of the Haesung Guild. He tells them that the person kept an eye on him from the moment he entered the hunting ground. Jumbo shares his insight, explaining that the guild harbors ill intentions towards their agency and mistreats their hunters. Their continuous distractions and bothersome attitude often lead their hunters to leave the agency. Eventually, he is of the view that this action was taken because they fought the clone to be another hunter who has joined their agency. He further adds that he cannot promise that there won't be any distractions in the future. Hearing this, Sang-woo assures him that he has still joined this agency despite knowing it all. Determined not to succumb to their bullying tactics, Sang-woo assures Jumbo that he will not be easily swayed. He declares his resolve to grow stronger at a rapid pace, refusing to allow the members of the High Sung Guild to continue their harassment. To achieve this, he explains a plan he has formulated in his mind to Jungle, who appears impressed by it. After hearing the plan, they decide to meet at Hunter's Market the next day at 2 p.m. The next day, Sang-woo and Junmo meet at Hunter's Market to make some purchases. There they learn about the newly opened departmental store that dominates the industry because it has all the equipment hunters could ever ask for. Sang-woo also enters the departmental store and purchases armor suits made of titanium along with weapons and ammunition. He orders 2 more sets of similar armor and leaves the shop. He also plans to purchase the familiar earlier skill he had previously searched for but was unable to afford at that time. Consequently, he goes to a store where he finds the skill ball he has been looking for. The container's description states that this skill can be utilized to share senses with one's summons or pets. Considering that it is still out of his budget, he requests that Jumbo lend him some money in advance, which he does, thinking that the successful completion of his goal will lead them to earn this money back in no time. He buys the ball. He then returns home and reads through the instructions in the accompanying manual to activate the skill ball and put it to use. The manual tells him to pour mana into the ball or simply switch on the button while keeping it in contact with the body. Goes with the second method, considering that he cannot control mana and switches on the button. This causes strong rays to emerge from the ball that surrounds Sang-woo. A few moments later, he receives a notification of the activation of the familiar skill that allows him to share his vision and senses with his clones. After shifting the skill into his body, the skill ball disappears. Following this, Sang-woo summons both of his clones, who are now equipped with the armor suits he had purchased for them. We then see flashbacks from the coffee shop where Sang-woo is engaged in a conversation with Jumbo regarding his plan. He informs Jumbo that despite his clones possessing only half of his abilities, they exhibit remarkable mastery over their physical movements. Sang-woo intends to use it to his advantage and asks Jumbo about 2 training grounds, each specialized in enhancing long-range and short-range weapon skills respectively. As per his strategy, both of his clones set off to different training academies with the intention of enrolling. However, rather than commencing with the fundamentals, they astonish the coaches by immediately requesting instruction in sparring and shooting techniques. The sparring coach explains to the clone that he will have to attack the opponent's stick and make him drop it in order to win. On the other hand, the shooting coach asks the other clone again if he really wants to use the pistol instead of a shotgun. Resolute in their determination, both of them agree and start right away. To the surprise of the coaches, both the clones display exceptional skill and expertise in their respective trials. While number 1 defeats his opponent in sparring within an instant, number 2 shatters the clay target with a single shot. Meanwhile, Sang-woo, following his plan, activates his familiar skill to connect to his clones. He can experience everything, even the movements of the joints and muscles while sparring, in the breathing, aiming, and direction while shooting. After experiencing all this, he opens his eyes, confident in his ability to copy all these movements. After deactivating the familiar skill, Sang-woo feels as if he was the one taking part in shooting and sparring. The movement of the muscles, the smell of the gunpowder, and the recoiling force felt so real, as if he himself were involved in it. He even feels petite, as if he were the one doing all this, despite knowing that he has not moved a single inch from his place. Considering that his clones have exactly the same bodies as him, he feels confident that he can copy those movements with ease. Just then a status window pops up in front of him, informing him that his strength has increased. He decides to practice both sparring and shooting himself. Utilizing his familiar skill, he establishes a connection with number 1, who is engaged in a fight with the coach after successfully defeating a highly skilled trainee. Meanwhile, all the trainees watch the competition with curiosity, considering that the coaches decided to spar with a student personally. During their battle, the coach realizes that although number 1 lacks experience using Batman's, his defense is outstanding. He is impressed by number 1's ability to read his moves and dodge his attacks. Not only that, but he also copies the coach's attacks right away and uses them against him, leaving everyone shocked. In this way, he defeats the coach and asks to start the match again. After observing number 1 for quite a while, Sang-woo decides to connect to number 2, who is occupied with shooting practice. He is surprised to see number 2 even shooting the targets of the person standing beside him. However, since they seem happy, he decides to focus only on the shooting. He keenly studies the shooting techniques employed by number 2, meticulously absorbing every detail of his clone skills. Taking in the entirety of their techniques, Sang-woo deactivates his familiar skill, feeling the exhaustion of depleting his mana. Seeking respite, he finds a bench in a park to rest on and sits down. While resting, he thinks about the crazy movements of his clones, who do not hesitate or fear while training. He decides to go with the clones next time in order to test what happens if he tries it himself. Just then, Sang-woo encounters Hyeon, who is returning from the library, and engages in a conversation with her. Their interaction catches the attention of individuals sitting at a distance. In the flashbacks, we see the individual who assaulted number 1 at Yu Jackson Field reaching out to his guild members and informing them that his attack was filmed. Upon hearing this, they advise him against approaching New Johnson Field and warn him never to disclose his affiliation with the High Sun Guild. If he gets caught saying this, they end the call, leaving the person feeling enraged. He throws his phone away and starts cursing his guild members. Just then the criminals, who seem to be his friends, arrive and inquire about the reason behind his distress, prompting him to share the entire incident. He also asks if they have any suitable job opportunities for him, given his instructions to stay away from New Jackson Field. In response, one of them confirms that he does have some part-time jobs available. At that moment, their attention is drawn to Sangwoo and Hyein, who are deeply engaged in a conversation nearby. Upon recognizing Sangwoo, the individual informs his friends that he is the same person who recorded his encounter with the hunter. While Sangwoo converses with Hyein, they approach him, leaving them feeling perplexed. Suddenly, Sangwoo recognizes the individual and urgently calls number 1 and number 2, instructing them to swiftly arrive at the location. Simultaneously, their boss steps forward and demands the removal of the video recording capturing the assault, promising a peaceful departure in return. Aware that deleting the video does not guarantee to safety, Sangwoo hesitates to comply. Sensing an imminent confrontation, he advises Hyein to seize the moment and escape, while he himself confidently stands before them. Observing his unwavering resolve, the criminal dispatches his subordinates to assail and assault him. Due to his lack of training and exhaustion from mana depletion, Sangwoo endures a severe beating at the hands of the thugs. Just as he falls to the ground, losing hope of victory, Hyein intervenes, unleashing her latent fire and fog powers, which frighten the subordinates. However, their leader remains undeterred by her display of power and steps forward to attack it. That moment, Hyein employs her powers to launch a strike at the person, causing fog to spread throughout the area. Surprisingly, he emerges from the fog unscathed and advances. Just as he is about to strike her with his fist, Sangwoo once again intervenes and blocks the attack. Utilizing his powerful striking skill, Sangwoo delivers a precise punch to him, causing him to lose his balance and stagger, leaving Hyein stunned. Seeing their master fall, the other members of the gang hastily launch their assault on Sangwoo. However, armed with his newly acquired sparring strategies, he deeply defends himself and swiftly counterattacks with calculated precision. The gang leader, who appears to have noticed Sangwoo's skills, rises once again. He expresses his initial hesitation to beat him, believing that Sangwoo was incapable of fighting. With a determined intention to engage in combat, he charges forward, causing Sangwoo to feel concerned about what action to take. Given the lingering pain from his previous fight, Sangwoo realizes he is not physically prepared to endure such forceful strikes. Once more, he starts to comprehend that the person's immense power stems from muscle enhancement techniques, leading Sangwoo to conclude that he must avoid being struck by him. As the person advances ready to land a blow, Sangwoo springs into action, skillfully evading the attack and retaliating with powerful punches, further fueling his anger. After enduring 2 to 3 blows, the gang leader unleashes his true power, resulting in his muscles bursting forth. He forcefully punches Sangwoo, aiming to disrupt his equilibrium, which he cannot dodge because the second criminal holds his leg. The impact of the blow is so strong that it throws him off balance, making it difficult for him to breathe. However, just as he prepares to strike a fatal blow, Haeyoung intervenes, employing her ignition skill to deliver a powerful strike, effectively thwarting the attack. Seeing this, the remaining thugs hastily turn their attention towards her, readying themselves to launch their assault. However, before they can carry out their intentions, number 1 and number 2 arrive on the scene, unleashing their combined strength to subdue them. Meanwhile, Sangwoo also regains stability and is finally able to breathe. He thanks the person for giving him a chance to put his skills to the test. In a practical scenario, he then uses his striking skills again to deliver one last powerful blow that knocks the person down. Subsequently, a notification appears in the status window informing him of an increase in his muscle strength, speed, stamina, and endurance. It also notifies him of the upgrade in his skill that grants him the ability to summon 3 clones simultaneously. Sangwoo is elated by this newfound development. Subsequently, he escorts Hyein for medical treatment and accompanies her to her residence. On their way, Hyein expresses her astonishment upon learning that the renowned Yu Jackson Eagle Eye was actually a clone of Sangwoo. Sternly instructs her not to disclose this information to anyone, and she obediently complies. He expresses his deep appreciation for her assistance, acknowledging that he would not have been able to succeed without her support. Hyein agrees to this and requests a gesture of gratitude in the form of a tree, which Sangwoo promises to give her. He bids her farewell on the doorstep of her house and turns to leave. Noticing his clones following him, he turns to them and instructs them to go and continue their rigorous training. They inform him that they cannot train during the night as all the academies have been closed. Taking that into consideration, he picks up sticks from the ground and gives them to his clones, telling them to practice in the park while he heads home. Time swiftly passes and an entire month elapses with the clones steadfastly devoted to their training. On a call with Jomo, Sangwoo shares the progress in his training and his skill upgrades with him. Jumbo is glad to hear that and congratulates Sangwoo for being able to enhance his stats at a faster pace. Due to the 3 clones sensing the need for further training, requests Jumbo urgently arrange 3 hunting grounds for his clones to utilize for their training purposes. Jungle readily agrees, taking on the responsibility of scheduling the locations. After hanging up the call, Sangwoo instructs the clones to go to the park and do the exercises that he has specified for them while the clones engage in exercises and warm-up routines. Sangwoo focuses his attention on conducting comprehensive research. He delves into an exploration of various F-class monster classifications, studying their distinctive characteristics, behavioral patterns, and methods of attack. Having thoroughly reviewed the guides pertaining to F-class monsters, he aims to ascertain whether his clones can effectively execute the hunting strategies outlined within the manuals. As the clones return from their exercise routine, Sangwoo instructs them to take a shower and eat. He plans to send them to the training grounds and connect with them through familiar skill while practicing the mana breathing technique. At home, he knows that he really needs to master that technique since the depletion of mana makes it difficult for him to use familiar skill for a longer duration. Just then he receives a message from Jumbo informing him of his arrival. In 10 minutes, he instructs the clones to finish their meal quickly and get ready. Shortly thereafter, Jimo arrives to transport them to the designated training grounds. Sangwoo tells him that he will remain behind and participate remotely through his familiar technique while practicing mana breathing exercises. Jumbo agrees and takes them away while Sangwoo goes inside and starts the exercise to gain proficiency in the mana breathing skill. He sits on the floor focusing on his senses while ignoring the disturbances in his surroundings. Focusing all his attention on circulating the mana inside his body, he starts getting control over the core. His inner energy. Finally, a window pops up in front of him, notifying him that he has successfully obtained the meditation skill in an F-class hunting ground. Down, a hunter runs to save his life from a formidable monster that seems to be of a much higher rank. The hunter seems terrified and wants to escape the dungeon to report the authorities about the monster, but is located and brutally killed by it. Meanwhile, Jumbo, after dropping off number 1 and number 2, takes number 3 to the sewage treatment plant, the hunting ground famous for the alien fish. He instructs number 3 to be careful as he leaves. Seeing him leave, Jumbo thinks of the amazing ability that Sangwoo possesses, allowing him to rest at his home while hunting in 3 grounds simultaneously. He expects the hunter industry to notice if the experience proves successful. Meanwhile, Sangwoo, who seems overjoyed to have acquired the mana breathing technique, is notified that he has only acquired the meditation skill, which is an entirely different thing. This leaves him disappointed, causing him to believe that the mana breathing is indeed hard to master. Just then he receives a message from Jumbo and informing him that all these clones have reached their assigned training locations. Eager to monitor their progress, Sangwoo activates his familiar skill, establishing a connection with number 1. To his astonishment, he witnesses number 1 effortlessly dispatching hordes of giant rats that relentlessly assail him. He wonders if the guild has helped him during the hunt and looks forward to finding it out. However, to his surprise, number 1 Han Solo, following the guidelines given in the manual to use shooting and close-range hunting skills, he then connects to number 2, who fearlessly moves through the hunting ground, killing every monster that comes his way. Similarly, number 3 also engages in actively eliminating the alien fish, leading to an increase in their collective stat points. Meanwhile, other hunters who enter the hunting ground notice an unusual silence which arouses their suspicion. Before long, they stumble upon a stack of lifeless alien fish, prompting them to wonder about the potential value of their findings. Meanwhile, Sangwoo, who is happily accompanying his clones, suddenly realizes that he has forgotten to instruct his clones to collect the corpses of the vanquished monsters. Considering that they were the primary source of money, he orders all of them to quickly go back and gather the corpses of the monsters they have hunted so far. While number 1 and number 2 execute this task successfully, number 3 encounters a significant problem during the collection of the slain alien fish. Number 3 stumbles upon fish torn apart in a brutal manner. Sangwoo notices that he is not collecting those corpses and asks him the reason behind that. Number 3 informs him that he hasn't hunted those creatures, prompting Sangwoo to instruct him to gather them all anyway, emphasizing their monetary value. In compliance, number 3 starts collecting the remains of the monsters, causing Sangwoo to ponder why someone would sever them in such a manner. During the process, number 3 stumbles upon a human hand, shocking both of them. He continues to trace the trail of the alien fish remains, unknowingly walking into a trap. As he progresses, he gradually realizes that the dead fish were nothing more than bait. Suddenly, a colossal monster with the face of a fish and the limbs of a monster materialist is before him. Number 3 attempts to confront it with a gun, but the creature launches a sudden attack, causing number 3 to lose his arm, the excruciating pain resulting from the injury affects Sangwoo profoundly, prompting him a scream, which in turn causes his connection with number 3 to get severed. Reacting to the situation, Sangwoo quickly contacts Jumbo, inquiring about the location of number 3's hunting ground. Sangwoo asks him to bring number 1 and number 2 to the same training ground, while he himself hastens to the scene as well. Meanwhile, despite sustaining severe injuries, number 3 confronts the monster, fighting with all his might. Soon, they all reach the sewage treatment plant, and Sangwoo informs Jumbo about his harrowing experience. Upon learning about the monster, Jumbo is shocked and emphasizes the need to alert the authorities and secure the area. He reveals that the creature encountered by number 3 is known as Fishman, classified as a D-rank monster, as he is About to lead to alert the authorities, Sang-woo stops him and asks him to allow his clones to enter the portal before closing it. Jumbo feels bewildered, but Sang-woo asks him to trust him as much as he trusts his clones. Accepting his request, Jungle allows his clones to enter the place while Sang-woo employs the familiar technique to establish a connection with them. Together they embark on a search for the precise location where number 3 vanished. Soon enough the clones come face to face with the formidable monster, who is busy consuming the alien fish. Considering that it is a golden opportunity to attack the monster, he instructs the clones to aim for its head. Complying, the clones ignite their weapons, launching bullet attacks at the monster, only to realize that the bullets do not affect it. Noticing the presence of the clones, the monster swiftly charges towards them, intending to crush them. Dodging the attack, they resort to wielding swords, attacking the monster from both sides. However, their efforts prove fruitless, for the monster's impenetrable skin remains unscathed by the feeble scratches inflicted by their blades. Unyielding, the monster retaliates by brandishing its own short sword, launching a vicious assault that they barely manage to defend against. It then hits them with such force that they are knocked down to the ground. Clueless about how to handle the situation, suddenly Sang-woo notices that one of the bullets fired by the clones inflicted some damage on the monster, so he urges the clones to relentlessly aim for the wound with their guns, hoping to exploit this vulnerability. Fortunately, their concerted efforts begin to weaken the monster. Nevertheless, as the creature's blood begins to flow, an unexpected phenomenon occurs. The blood reacts with the sword the monster wields, causing a strange sort of energy to emanate from the sword. This helps the monster rejuvenate itself, growing even stronger than before. Empowered by this newfound energy, the monster swiftly injures both clones with little effort. However, thinking that this surge of energy is just temporary, they charge it at once. Again, despite sustaining severe injuries, the clones refuse to yield. They keep launching attacks on the monster with their swords, spears, and every weapon they have. Finally, they manage to overpower the creature, delivering relentless blows until it finally succumbs. Wounded and fatigued from the grueling fight, the clones too collapse onto the ground, seeking a momentary respite. However, their relief is short-lived, and they suddenly notice the wounded monster stir, gradually moving away from their position towards the portal. Meanwhile, the guards at the entrance forbid the hunters to enter, informing them of the presence of a D-rag monster inside. Suddenly, they notice the fishman approaching the portal with a short sword in its hand. Reacting swiftly, the guards unleash a barrage of gunfire upon the monster, but their bullets prove ineffective. Undeterred by the hail of bullets, the monster charges forward, ready to unleash a retaliatory attack. Just as it lunges towards the guards, the clones arrive on the scene, launching a fierce counterattack against the monster. However, before the clones can fully engage the creature, Sang-woo emerges before them, confronting the monster head-on with a relentless assault. With unwavering determination, Sang-woo exerts all this strength to deliver a decisive blow to the head of the monster, ultimately sealing its fate. The onlookers stand in awe, transfixed as they witness Sang-woo thrusting his sword deep into the creature's skull, ensuring its ultimate demise. As the people stand surrounding the monster's corpse, shocked to comprehend what they saw, a top-class hunter dispatched by the Hunters Association arrives at the scene. He is equally astonished to see the corpse of a D-class fishman. Inquiring about the incident, he consults the guard, who informs him that the creature was slain by a hunter who ventured into the portal. Hearing this, the hunter assumes that the killer is a member of a D-rank hunter's team. However, his astonishment grows as he discovers that the responsible individual is not a T nor a D-rank hunter, but an F-rank hunter possessing the cloning ability. The guard then points towards Sang-woo standing with Jumbo at a distance, telling the hunter that he is the one who killed the monster. Curiosity piqued, the hunter approaches the monster's lifeless body, closely examining the techniques employed to slay it. He notices the same wound of the monster being targeted repeatedly in an attempt to weaken it without the need for special weapons. This makes him wonder if it's possible to accurately shoot a moving monster in the same spot, further intensifying his astonishment. However, before engaging Sang-woo in conversation, he decides to investigate the training ground, ensuring the absence of any other lurking D-class monsters. Meanwhile, Sang-woo receives a lot of new skills, including sprinting, smite shooting, and regeneration, along with a significant increase in his stats. He takes a look at his clone's condition, who appear to be badly injured. However, he decides to let them heal by themselves, as doing so would enhance his regeneration ability. Jumbo, who is standing beside him, asks about his experience of killing the deadly monster, which Sang-woo considers to be highly dangerous. Jumbo believes that the level of skill Sang-woo possesses could even enable him to single-handedly slay an E-class monster. Engrossed in conversation, his attention is drawn to this short sword wielded by the creature. Intrigued by its uniqueness, he decides to claim it for himself. However, Jumbo warns against the potential curse associated with the item, suggesting that Sang would delegate the task to his clone. Instead, conceding to Jumbo's advice, Sang-woo retreats, expecting to be given a big reward for slaying a D-class monster. He decides to leave before the media descends upon the scene and starts the coverage. However, just as he is about to leave, he suddenly recollects something of importance and takes out a large ruby-colored stone from his pocket. Inquisitive, he turns to Jumbo, questioning its value and mentioning that he has extracted it from the monster's head. Jumbo, awestruck upon Seeing the stone makes a decision not to disclose its true worth. Instead, he nodularly dismisses it as a mediocre gem. Of little significance, he says that this stone is used to increase stats, but due to some dangerous side effects associated with it, it is not good for humans. This makes Sangwoo a little disappointed, but Jumbo assures him that the remains of the monster are enough to earn him a great profit. Satisfied by his words, Sangwoo leaves, delegating the corpse collection task to Jumbo. After reaching home, he tells his clones to rest and resummons number 3, who vanished after being attacked by the monster. Sangwoo gives the armor back to him, telling him to wear it and exercise. Meanwhile, he takes out this short sword and the jewel he took from the monster. He searches the web about the jewel and learns that it is a low-class strength jewel capable of transforming the consumer into a monster if excessively consumed. He contemplates whether to allow his clones to consume it, but fears the possibility of himself becoming a monster and being killed by his companions. Considering during this, he dismisses the idea of consuming the gem and sets it aside. Next, he retrieves the short sword, which is enclosed in a box. Recalling Jumbo's advice to have the clone hold it due to its potential curse, he calls number 2 and instructs him to hold the sword. Apparently, number 2 holding the sword does not exhibit any.
That's it for today. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.